So where to find rehabbers? So the majority of my rehabbers that I found were from, like if I needed a siding contractor to do siding work, I would look for siding companies that were doing work on houses where they were out in the field working. I would walk up and say, is the owner here? Because I'd like to talk to them, and they would say no. Then I would tell them I'm an investor and I've got property, and do they do work on the side? Because I'm looking for a lower cost siding guy, okay? So that's how I found most of my roofers, siders. I had also, if you go to Home Depot at 7 a.m., 7:30 in the morning, you'll see a whole string of contractors checking out at the counter. So I would get to know the, and I was already in Home Depot, so I knew the clerks there, and I would find out who the contractors were. And this is like a statement that I'm not, there are a large number of contractors that drink, okay? They have a substance abuse problem. So I was looking for functioning alcoholics versus an alcoholic that wasn't functioning. In other words, I just made the assumption that everybody I was dealing with had issues around that. So, but I knew that people that were at Home Depot at 7:30 in the morning usually wouldn't start drinking till later in the day. So I was looking for contractors that were at Home Depot at 7:30 in the morning, is what I'm saying. And I was looking for experienced contractors. So the clerk could tell me which contractors were always busy and in there working. So I hung around. I was already at Home Depot, but I was looking for, I found a lot of contractors at Home Depot in the checkout line. So you go to the RIA meetings, and people that have contractors working for them are not going to tell you who those contractors are. If they are giving you the name of a contractor, it's probably not a contractor you want. Does everybody follow that? So you really got to go out and find contractors that are out on the street, that know what they're doing, that you see the work being done, you know it's quality work. So I have a brick repair guy that we sell leads to, and he does chimney repair and chimney work. He gets his laborers from the union. So like say you got Kroger's, there's a Kroger's out by us right now where it's being totally, brickwork's being done. So he's going to be the guy talking to those guys, asking if they do side work. Do you follow? And hiring them. So you're looking for a quality guy that knows how to do quality work, but you can get a good deal from on value. So that was basically how I developed it. Once I got a rehab crew that worked well for me, then I just tried to hang on to them. But all rehab crews that do work on houses eventually lose their mind. So I would hire a rehab crew, and for months and months they'd be doing a really good job, and then all of a sudden I would get bids from them that were ridiculously high or something. So I was always having to say, whoa, I can't do that, and then switch crews and stuff. So it's a dance. So you got to really know what you're doing around that. So you need to have subcontractor agreement. On Saturday, I'm going to do an all-day seminar. So I've got a subcontract agreement. I'm going to go through it in depth. And the key things on a subcontract agreement when you're hiring a subcontractor is you need to have a pay structure that works. So if you're hiring a brand new contractor you've never used before, then you're going to go buy materials from them, and you're only going to buy a limited number of materials, and you're going to make sure that you pay for them and they get from Home Depot, and then they get delivered, and then he's going to finish the work. You're not going to the number one way that I lost money in this business is if you cannot trust contractors, so you have to inspect everything they do before you pay them, and they're professional at begging for their money or scrabbling to get their money. So you've got to really watch when you're hiring subcontractors to work. And any monies I ever lost, it was pretty much right in that arena. So So I would, once I had subcontractors I could trust, then I would probably do like a third down and then go inspect the work and then do another draw. And I always held back a good chunk at the end of the job. Now I learned all this the hard way. I mean, they taught me what I had to do by getting beat up, okay? So, and when I first started, I was so naive. I had one house, I went out to inspect the job and I looked up the gutters and I said, how did you ever find old gutters like the ones that were on the house? I was like so impressed that they were able to go replace these rounded out gutters. They didn't replace the gutters. They took heat duct tape, and where the holes were in the gutters, they put heat duct tape above and below and then painted it. And I'm standing there looking at it, and then like first rain and all the stuff's peeling off. I had one contractor use garden hose instead of plumbing in the walls. With, you know, I mean, I had a guy do cardboard and paint over it. I mean, I just had all kinds of craziness. So you have to go inspect, and you got to go. So when I was doing those 8 houses, I was out every day stopping at houses and looking at it. And I could, Pontiac was a great market because anywhere in Pontiac I could be there in 5 minutes. So I could just do my little run, you know. And I was inspecting the guys that had been working with me 3 and 4 years. But the only reason I was is because I'd been beat up so many times. At one point I had a problem with furnaces. The furnaces kept disappearing out of the houses. So finally I marked the furnace with these pins that they mark at the junkyard. I marked my furnace, and I found out that I was buying the same furnace from the same heating contractor. He would just move it to another house and sell it to me again. So then, you know, so usually if you've got a theft problem with a rehab job, it's your subcontractor. It's not the neighbor going, oh, I need a new toilet. You know, it's the subcontractor going, I can, you know, go put this in another. So dealing with subcontractors and you're doing rehabs and you're not doing it yourself, you've got to really be there looking. You want to add anything to that? Am I off, or have you? Okay. So, how to buy materials. So let me. So like these are some things that to think about. Okay. So if I was rehabbing a house, and I was buying brand new furnaces, but I've got a friend that's doing this now, and he's buying furnaces that are a year old from a licensed contractor. So he's picking them up for, I just talked to him before the seminar, so $250, and he's spending about $200 putting them in. On his kitchens, like when he does a remodel on a kitchen in a house, this is a house, even if he's going to resell it, he goes to Craigslist and he looks for people pulling cabinets out. So his typical cabinets are running him from $300 to $500, where if you're going in to buy brand new kitchen cabinets, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So he's using Craigslist extensively to buy a lot of his materials. And on his windows, he's doing his own windows. He said wall side, and I would use, when I was doing this back in the 80s, you could go to wall side and you could get $200 an opening for a window installed. And that's all changed. It's up around $500 an opening, meaning a window installed. So he's buying his windows right now for about $250, and he's doing his own installation. Hot water tanks he's buying used, a year old, says, I don't know, he says he's buying them for $100 to $120. New hot water tanks about $400, I don't know.
So how's he finding them when you're old?
If you email me, and my card's back there, I'll ask him, he'll give me where he's the purchasing and stuff. I'll be glad to forward that to you. I'm just saying, you got to really, you know, but you probably got some risk in doing that, you know, but it offsets if you're doing this in a volume type way. So, back to this subcontractor, I would buy the materials for them, and I would do it at Home Depot, but I was meeting a lot of contractors there. I had to have proof of workman's comp and liability insurance, and I had to be, that proof had to come from their insurance carrier, not from them. Then you got to get their tax ID numbers and all of that. The scope of the work, I spent lots of time having it detailed out, because if you don't do that, you got a problem. So that's the main points on that. So I would get 3 quotes, but after I'd been doing this for a long time, I didn't get 3 quotes. I pretty much knew what my rehab costs were. So like, if you do enough of this stuff, you don't need to go grab three quotes. But it's kind of like doing wholesaling, and once you've looked at enough properties, and it's just what Ken said earlier, you grab a market, you know exactly what the pricing is in that market, so when you're going to look at something. It's the same thing with the rehabs. After a while, and you're doing enough of them, you know exactly what you can walk through a house and pretty much know what it's going to do. I'm going to do a walkthrough on what I consider to be a rehabbed house, or what a house should look like after it's rehabbed that I'm reselling. But I'm going to qualify that to say that this is a house that's not in West Bloomfield or in a more upscale Ann Arbor area. It's a house that would be in Toledo, Detroit, Pontiac, but I'm selling it to a homeowner. So I'm going to walk you through that situation. And that's where you're going to find a lot more deals. So
I made a mistake of having a sub to put a roof on it, and he said he was gonna pull the permit on it, and I called back, $500. He didn't pay the permit. And I said, you have to pay $500, he didn't care. He just wanted to get enough profit off of it, so he can pull the permit, so it's gonna be a substantial amount.
So that's a really good point. Since this is, I think, only what Ken just said was that you need to make sure permits get pulled. You need to make sure you hold back enough money on the subcontractor. When I was in the city of Pontiac, I would go pull the permits ourselves as a homeowner, and they were letting us do it at that point. So, but what you need to know is a lot of investors think they don't need to pull permits, or they can do it behind the city and not have an issue, and that's a huge mistake, because most contractors are not going to work under that premise. They pull their truck into the front yard and they throw the stuff out the front door. So a building inspector is going to see it instantly, and you're going to have a huge problem. So it's
Most people are selling, you get disclosed, so there's a permit.
yeah. So once you get into it, and when I first started, I tried not pulling permits. And again, since I like to pay for more expensive seminars, that I got one because I had said, oh wow, you gotta go for permits. So I learned the hard way. So what I had when I did houses in the city of Pontiac, if I had a house that wouldn't sell, then I still had a house that I could do a rent to own or lease option on and exit out of it. So I would structure stuff so that I wasn't going to get clobbered. So it was kind of like what you guys said, if you want to buy a house that you eventually can rent. And if you're going to do the rental thing, then you need to absolutely look to structure stuff maybe on a rent to own type situation. I'll explain that in more depth. So let's talk about like a house that you would rehab, and if you can feel free if I miss something to jump in. So again, now we're back in Detroit. We're in Pontiac. We're in Toledo market. We're into markets where there's more rental situations, but there's also home buyers. So, and my objective in this is to sell the house. So when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about rehabbing the house to be sold. So we're going to start with the outside of the house. So if you want to sell a house, after the rehab's all done, you need to have the grass cut, the walks edged, and if there's a driveway in the house that you bought, this is what I was doing. So I'm not saying it was right or wrong, but if I had a driveway that was broken up, then my exit strategy was to cap it with asphalt, because I could inexpensively go in and run a layer of asphalt right over the top of either an existing asphalt driveway or even a concrete driveway. It would look really good. It would be nice, clean, sharp look. If the house needed siding, then I would actually side the house. And I told you where I was getting my siding contractors from. I was pretty cheap, so sometimes I only sided the front of the house, and sometimes I would side the front and the sides, but not the back of the house. So because that's just what I was doing. So if I looked up at the roof, I'm going to make sure I got gutters. If you're going to get gutters, you need to order somebody that'll come out and put the seamless gutters up, and you can get those pretty inexpensively. If there was a roof, and the law says that you could put 2 layers of shingles on the roof, then I would have, if I was putting a second layer of shingles on the roof, then what I would do was I would cut the top 2 feet off of the existing shingles. So if you looked at the shingles from looking up from the ground, it would look like there was only 1 layer of shingles on the house. But when I sold the house, I always disclosed there was 2 layers. But what the eyes see, you want a nice clean look to it. So that's what I would do. Does everybody follow that? So I'm trying to cover the outside of the house. Shrubs, if it had really old shrubs in that, we would rip them up and put new shrubs in and do some landscaping. So that was the front. If it was houses, at that point in time, I was adding some brass kickboards and stuff like that. But you need a nice clean look from the outside. So then you walk into the house. If the house did have older windows in it still, it didn't matter if it had new windows or older windows. I was doing window treatments on the inside. So I would have usually like, I'm not a valance, right? I don't know what you call it. And then I would have the blinds so that you could, they weren't expensive, but at least it was somewhat staged. And then in the bathrooms, I would have towels. So now we're in the living room. So I would get my carpet from a guy named Ron Fraley. He owned a company at that point. It was called Carpet from Georgia. And for $10, I could have carpet installed per yard. That was by the yard. And the carpet would be really good quality carpet. He was doing all the builders, like building West Bloomfield. And so I would have good quality carpet for $10 a yard. I think he's up to like $13 or $14 a yard now. But he would do a really good job. If I ever had a problem with the carpet, he'd come rip it out and redo it. So, and there's the investors that I was doing this stuff with 20 years ago are still using him. So he was a really good value for me. Let's see.
Best deal on blinds is Home Depot.
Okay.
They'll measure and install all blinds in the house for like $100 or something like that, $120.
Oh, that's an incredible deal. Yeah. Okay.
It's like you want the blinds there because it doesn't become a sub. Like that's serious. And I can install 3 blinds for that price. They'll measure it, make sure it's cut right, install it all for that price. If you do 20 blinds,
So if you're in an area that's a tougher area, then I would always give the neighbors, I would get to know the neighbors and I would pay them $40 or $50. And I'd ask them to actually park their car in the driveway and let them use the driveway because I wanted to have the house look occupied. I always I had a stock of stickers that you would put on the front door.
By clicking the link in the description below, you can purchase the full version of this video in all the forms mentioned within, for only $7.99. Or, if you like, you can get access to all of our real estate investing videos at 27monthlymeetup.com. The cost is only $27 a month, and includes all past meetings, 3 new meetings a month, plus all the forms mentioned. Thanks for watching.